Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. On today's tutorial, I will demonstrate how to draft, cut and sew this pleated kiddies dress with a Peter Pan collar and a puff sleeve. Hi, my name is Ayo and welcome to 011 Clothings Tutorials. On this channel, I upload DIYs, pattern drafting and sewing tutorials. If you haven't subscribed yet, kindly do so and do not forget to turn on the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. So now, let's get right into the tutorial. Thank you! I'll be working with the following items: tape measure, a pair of paper scissors, a pair of fabric scissors, tracing wheel. Ideally, a pencil should be used to draft a pattern, but for tutorial purpose, I'll be using this marker pen, water erasable fabric pencil, pens, rulers and curves, pattern paper, plain blue fabric, some sequin fabric, 2.5 yards of African print fabric, and 2.5 yards of lining fabric. I'll be working with the following measurements: shoulder to shoulder measurement 9.5 inches, shoulder to waistline 10.5 inches, around chest measurement 23 inches, around waist 22 inches, dress length 35 inches. So I have here this pattern paper, and on the pattern paper I've drawn a margin of about 1.5 inches at the top and also on the left hand side of the paper. I will now start drafting the bodice of the dress. The shoulder to waistline measurement is 10.5 inches and this will be the length of the bodice of the dress. So from the upper starting line, I will go ahead to measure and mark 10.5 inches like this, and I will square a horizontal line across, and this is the hem of the bodice. Next, I will measure and mark 1 inch from the upper starting line like this, and I will draw a horizontal line across, and this line is the shoulder line. Next, I will divide the around chest measurement by 4, and this is 23 inches divided by 4, and this is equal to 5.75 inches. So from the upper starting line, I will measure and mark 5.75 inches like this, and I will draw a horizontal line across, and this line is the armhole line. For the back neckline curve, I will use a value of 2.5 inches by 1 inch. And using my French curve, I will now draw the back neckline curve like this. Next, I will divide the shoulder to shoulder measurement by 2, and this is 9.5 inches divided by 2, and this is equal to 4.75 inches. So on the shoulder line, I will measure and mark 4.75 inches like this. Also on the armhole line, I will go ahead to measure and mark 4.75 inches like this. I will now connect these 2 points together with broken lines like this. Next, I will connect these 2 points together to give me the slanted shoulder slope. I will now calculate the around chest measurements plus 1 inch for ease divided by 4, and this is 23 inches plus 1 divided by 4, and this is equal to 6 inches. So on the armhole line, I will measure and mark 6 inches like this. I will locate and mark the middle point on the broken line. From the middle point, I will go in by half an inch. I will now connect these 2 points together with a ruler like this. I will also connect these 2 lower points with a French curve like this. Next, I will calculate the around waist measurement plus 1 inch for ease divided by 4, and this is 22 plus 1 divided by 4, and this is equal to 5.75 inches. So at the hem of the bodice pattern, which is also the waistline, I will measure and mark 5.75 inches like this. I will now connect these 2 points together with a ruler like this. This is the center back. I will now add 1 inch zip allowance to the center back of the pattern. I will now go ahead and cut out the back pattern. I will fold the zip allowance like this. And I will pin the back pattern on another pattern paper like this, and I will use it as a template to cut out the front neckline. I will draw another neckline for the front pattern, and I will use a value of 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. I will now cut out the front pattern. So this is the front pattern for the dress, and it will be cut on fold on the fabric. This is what the front and the back pattern look like. The next thing to do is to draft the Peter Pan collar. To draft the Peter Pan collar, I will place the front and the back pattern pieces together like this with the shoulders touching each other. I will temporarily sellotape them together at the shoulder line like this. I will now draw out the shape of the Peter Pan collar like this. I'm using the exact shoulder width as the width of the Peter Pan collar. I will trace out the shape of the collar onto another pattern paper like this. I will make the tracing bolder, and I will label the back and the front of the pattern. And I will cut it out. I will now separate the back and the front patterns that I sellotape together at the shoulders like this. This is the basic short sleeve pattern for a child. I will now divide the pattern into 6 sections, and I will label the sections. I will now cut out the sections along the slash lines like this. I will now spread out these pieces on another pattern paper like this, using 1 inch as the space between each section. I will mark the middle point at the upper part of the sleeve like this. I will raise it up by 1 inch. I will do the same thing at the hem of the sleeve. I will lower the hem of the sleeve by 1 inch. I will now redraw the hem of the sleeve and also the sleeve edge. I will now cut out the puff sleeve pattern. These are the pattern pieces needed to make the bodice of the dress. I will now go ahead and cut them out on the fabric. So now I have pinned the front and the back pattern pieces on the fabric, and the fabric has been folded into 2. The center front piece will be cut on fold. I used half an inch seam allowance all around the patterns, except for the side seam where I used 1 inch side seam allowance, and there is already 1 inch zip allowance at the center back, so there is no need for any seam allowance at the center back. I will now go ahead and do the cutting. I have also pinned the puff sleeve pattern to the fabric, and the fabric has been folded into 2 layers. I use half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern except for the side seam where I use 1 inch side seam allowance. So now I've cut it out. I will notch the middle of the sleeve at the sleeve edge. Next, I will cut out the 2 belt pieces. So I will fold the fabric into 4 layers like this. I will draw out the upper starting line like this. I will measure the length of the belt and I will use 27 inches as the length. I will draw a horizontal line like this. The width of the upper part of the belt is 2.5 inches. And I will make the width of the lower part of the belt 3.5 inches. From the 3.5 inch point, I will go up by 2 inches. I will now connect these 2 points together with my ruler like this. I will also connect these 2 points together with my ruler also. I will now cut out the belt. So these are the 2 belt pieces. I will cut out the Peter Pan collar on the sequin fabric, which has been folded into 2 layers. I use half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern. This is just the top collar. I will cut the under collar on the plain blue fabric because I don't want the collar to be too bulky because of the sequin fabric. I will notch the middle of the collar and 1 straight notch for the front and 2 straight notches will show that this is the back of the collar. These are the front and the back pieces. And I've also gone ahead to cut them out on the lining fabric as well. I will now separate the lining from the main fabric. I will now place the back pieces on top of the front piece like this, right side to right side. And I will shoulders in place using half an inch sewing allowance. I will do the same thing for the lining pieces as well. So now the stitching has been done. As you can see, I've sewn the shoulders in place on both the main fabric and also the lining fabric. This is the Peter Pan collar, and I have fused interfacing on the wrong sides of all the collar pieces. I will now place the plain collar pieces on top of the sequin collar pieces, right side to right side. I will pin them in place and I will stick the pieces together using half an inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see, and I've turned the collars to the right side. After sewing, I notch the seam allowances, and then I understick the seam allowance to the plain fabric. I did the same thing on this other piece as well. And I've given the 2 pieces a thorough press with my iron. On the front neckline of the bodice, I will notch the middle point like this. I will measure and mark the 1 inch zip allowance at the necklines of both back pieces. I will now pin the two collar pieces to the necklines of the bodice with the right side facing up, starting from the 1 inch zip allowance at the center back. I will now go ahead and stitch the collar pieces in place about 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. I will now place the lining piece on top of the main outer piece like this, right side to right side. I will pin the necklines in place, then I will take it to my sewing machine and stick the necklines in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. After sewing, I knock the seam allowances and then I understitch the seam allowance to the neckline of the lining piece. I have here this band that I will fix to the hem of the bodice, and it is 2.5 inches wide on fold, and the full width is 5 inches. And I have used interfacing to the wrong side of the band, which was cut on the sequin fabric. The length should be slightly longer than the front hemline. You can always trim off the excess fabric later on. I will now go ahead and stitch it to the hem of the main fabric only, about 1/4 inch from the hem of the fabric. These are the two belt pieces. I will also go ahead and sew them in place, right side to right side, like this, using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done. This is the band, and as you can see, it was sewn only to the main Ankara fabric, and these are the two belt pieces, and I've turned them to the right side and given them a thorough press with my iron. I will now measure and mark 3/4 inch above the hem of the bodice at the side seam. I will now pin the two belt pieces like this on the 3/4 inch mark. The side of the belt that is on fold should be up and the seam line should be down. I will now stick the belts in place 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric. After doing this, I will now place the back pieces on top of the front piece, right side to right side, and I will sew the side seams in place with the best sandwiched in between them using 1 inch sewing allowance. I will do the same thing for the lining pieces as well. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. So for now, we are done with the bodice of the dress. I will now move to the lower parts of the dress. The full length of the dress is 35 inches. The shoulder to waistline measurement is 10.5 inches. And this is the length of the bodice. So the length of the lower part of the dress is the dress length minus the shoulder to waistline measurement, which is 35 inches minus 10.5 inches, and this is equal to 24.5 inches. I will add 1.5 inches to this for the seam allowance, and this is equal to 26 inches. As for the length of the lining, I will subtract 2 inches from the 26 inches, and this gave me a value of 24 inches. Now that I'm done calculating the length of the fabric needed for the lower part of the dress, I will now calculate the fabric weight. For the main fabric, is the Ankara fabric, I will multiply the waist circumference measurement by 2.5, and the around waist measurement is 22 inches. So 22 inches multiplied by 2.5 is equal to 55 inches. As for the lining, I will multiply the waist circumference by 1.5, and this is 22 multiplied by 1.5, and this is equal to 33 inches. So now I have gone ahead to cut out the fabric that I need to make the lower part of the dress, both the Ankara fabric and the lining fabric, following the dimensions that I just calculated. Now I will determine the exact positions of the pleats on the Ankara fabric that I just cut out. On the dress, we have a total of 7 pleats, 3 pleats at the front, 2 pleats at the back, and 2 pleats at the sides. For the pleats at the front, I will measure the length of the front waistline on the bodice that I've sewn in place. And this gave me a value of 12 inches. I will divide this by 4, and this gave me a value of 3 inches. For the back, I will also measure the length of the waistline on one of the back pieces. The zip allowance will not be included in the measurement. And this gave me a value of 6 inches. I will now divide this 6 by 2, and this is equal to 3 inches. So the pleats will be placed 3 inches apart on the fabric. The next thing I will do is to measure the full length of the waistline of the bodice. And this gave me a value of 26 inches. The total fabric width that I cut for the Ankara is 55 inches. So the excess fabric is 55 inches minus 26 inches, and this is equal to 29 inches. And this 29 inches is the extra fabric that will be pleated. We have a total of 7 pleats. So 29 inches divided by 7 is equal to 4.14 inches, and I will approximate this value to 4 inches. So all the 7 pleats will be 4 inches wide. So this is the fabric that I will use for the lower part of the dress, and I will notch the middle of the fabric like this. I will now open up the fabric like this with the right side facing up. As I estimated earlier, each of the pleats will be 4 inches wide. So starting from the middle point of the fabric that I've already notched, I will measure and mark 2 inches on both sides of the middle point like this. I will now fold the box pleats in place like this towards the center of the fabric, and I will secure the pleats in place with my pins. I will make sure that the pleats overlap each other a little bit before pinning them. The space in between each of the 7 pleats should be 3 inches. So to the right of the center pleats, I will measure and mark 3 inches. From the 3 inch, I will measure and mark the 4 inches. And I will mark the middle point of the 4 inches. And I will fold the box pleats in place towards the center of the 4 inch plate. And I will make sure that the box pleat overlap a little bit before pinning it in place. Also to the left of the middle pleat, I will measure and mark 3 inches. And from this 3 inch point, I will measure and mark 4 inches, which is the width of the pleat. I will also mark the middle of the 4 inch pleat, and I will fold the box pleat in place like this towards the center of the 4 inch point. And I will make sure that the box pleat overlap a little bit before pinning it in place. I will now continue doing this until I have all the 7 pleats in place on the fabric. I will now go ahead and stitch the pleats in place on my sewing machine about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. So now that has been done, and I have already gathered the upper part of the lining. I have also stitched the pleats in place on the Ankara fabric. This is the bodice of the dress, and I will notch the middle of the bodice at the hem like this. I will now pin the bodice to the pleated skirt, making sure that the centers match up, and also that the pleats at the side seam should match up with the side seams on the bodice. I will pin the pieces fabric to fabric and lining to lining with their right sides together. Once I'm done pinning, I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch it in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done. And I have overlocked the raw edges of the seam allowance on both the lining fabric and the African print fabric. It is now time to fix this long zip to the center back of the dress. So I will measure and mark where I want the zip to end below the waistline of the dress, and this is 7 inches, and I will notch the 7-inch point. I will also measure these 7 inches on the lining, and I will also notch the 7-inch point on the lining also. So with the right sides together, I will measure and mark 1 inch zip allowance below the 7-inch point on both the lining and the Ankara fabric. I will now take it to my sewing machine and I will do the stitching following the guideline that I just drew on the fabric. I will now go ahead and do the stitching now with my sewing machine. So now I have done the stitching. I will now go ahead and mark the 1 inch zip allowance at the center back. I will now sew the zip to the center back of the dress following the guidelines that I just drew. The first thing I will do is to change the regular machine foot into a zipper foot. I will now go ahead and sew the zip to the center back of the dress following the guidelines that I've already drawn on the fabric. You should leave 1 inch opening, which is the zip allowance, at the neckline at the center back. I will now go ahead and do the stitching now, only on the Ankara fabric. We should not sew on the lining fabric at this point. So now I have fixed the zip to the main Ankara fabric only. I will now turn the dress to the wrong side. I will sew the 1-inch opening at the back neckline, right side to right side on both back pieces. Once I'm done doing this, I will now sew the lining to the center back of the dress, very close or on top of the previous stitching line. I will do this on both back pieces. So the first thing I will do is to close the 1-inch opening at the center back on the neckline using the regular machine foot. I will trim off the excess zip at the top. I will do the same thing on the other back piece as well. I will now change the regular machine foot into a zipper foot. I will now sew the lining in place, very close or on top of the previous stitching line. Right sides are together and the zip is sandwiched in between the lining and the Ankara fabric. So now I have fixed the zip neatly, as you can see. This is the puff sleeve. I will sew the side seams together, right side to right side, using 1-inch sewing allowance. So now I have done the stitching. I will now turn the sleeves to the right side. I will now locate the middle of the sleeve at the hem of the sleeve on the side that will be at the back of this dress. I will now measure and mark 2.5 inches above the hem of the sleeve, and I will cut the fabric from the hem to this point on both sleeves. I will now use this fabric strip that is about 1 inch wide to tape the raw edges that I just made. So now that has been done, at the end of the taping, I stitched it diagonally in place, like this. I will now go ahead and gather the upper part and the hem of the two sleeve pieces. So now the gathering has been done. As you can see, the length of the hem after gathering should be equal to the around arm measurement plus 1 inch for ease. I will now sew this 3 inches band to the hem of the sleeve, and I will now go ahead and fix this sleeve to the armhole of the dress. I will now create the bow at the front of the dress, and I've cut out this rectangular piece that is 6 inches wide on fold and is also 6 inches long. To cut out the tie of the bow, I will fold this sequin fabric into 4 layers. I will measure and mark 2 inches for the width of the upper part. The length of the tie will be 12 inches. The width at the hem of the tie is 4 inches. I will go up by 2 inches and I will now connect the points together with a ruler, and then I'll cut it out. And this is what the tie looks like. I have to fix interfacing to the wrong size of these two pieces of sequin fabric. I will now go ahead and sew them in place, right side to right side, using half an inch sewing allowance. I will leave enough opening for me to be able to turn out the fabric to the right side, after which I will close the opening by top stitching it from the right side. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see, and I've given the two pieces a thorough press with my iron. I will now create the bow like this by tying the tie around the rectangular piece, and I will arrange it properly. This is the dress, and as you can see, I've already sewn the sleeves to the armhole of the dress. I will fix a button to this opening at the back of the sleeve. Using a needle and a thread, I will now go ahead and fix this bow to the front of the dress at this side. And this is the final look of the Peter Pan dress with box pleats for a little girl. And that's it, guys, we are done. If you find this video helpful, do not forget to give it a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, share this video with your friends who are interested in sewing, and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. See you in my next tutorial. Bye, and thank you so much for watching.